Welcome back to Six String Philosophy. I'm here to share with you one of my all-time favorite artists, Tom Waits, and a particular song which is in my desert island list of songs that I just love, never get tired of, and that's Downtown Train. And so we're going to break it down, all parts of it. Probably the first time I was ever exposed to Tom Waits when I was a little kid, not even knowing it. I'm hitting HBO at night, and his movie Big Time, which was like a concert movie, came on. And I watched it and I was just mesmerized. And they're on stage with a drop light and a microphone singing into that growling. Some people, when you ask them if they like Tom Waits and they're familiar with only the growl era stuff, you put on something off of Swordfish Trombones or off of Mule Variations, which have great tracks on there. But if you just did random album cut and put something on, it's probably not a crowd pleaser where you throw it on at a barbecue and you know, everybody just kind of toe tapping along. Not likely. But there is something for everybody. Start with the Closing Time album, move on to The Heart of Saturday Night, two very beautiful albums loaded with ballads. And so if you don't think you like Tom Waits, I'm going to put out a challenge and say, listen to those. Listen to songs like Grapefruit Moon, devastating. Listen to songs like Martha, songs like Hope That I Don't Fall in Love with You. That's like sort of like the get into the shallow end. As you move a little deeper in, and if you like what you're hearing, there are some other tracks on those albums like Diamonds on My Windshield, which is kind of like a little bit of like a beat poet take, where you can see him channeling one of his favorite authors, who's Jack Kerouac. I would say you're safe in any of those realms where anything you pull off those, it's not going to be like really jarring. You move to albums like this one, which is Rain Dogs, and it starts to get a little bit more avant-garde, a little more artistic, theatrical, experimental, digging into ever more unstable realms in the depths, probing for, you know, his subjects. He starts to trade out some of those typical instruments for what I guess eventually becomes known as like the Junkyard Orchestra band of Tom Waits, where it's like people hitting, you know, break drums and, you know, playing marimbas and a lot of accordion to get like the perfect sound. Hardtack and Vine album, there's a lot of really cool stuff on there that to me I feel like it bridges the gap between his early jazz era and that I'll call that almost like that's like transition era Tom Waits. As you move towards the present, everything from Mule on forward, haven't really heard a lot, and I've looked for some gems, like people I've seen recommendations there, like Fish and Bird. That's kind of a cool one. Downtown Train was an album track for Tom, did no business in terms of commercially, but you know, is one that was covered by Rod Stewart famously, and I think maybe 4 years after it was released. Like Rod Stewart got up to number 3 on the charts with his rendition of Downtown Train. What does Tom think about all this? He has other songs too that became famous in other people's voices, like Jersey Girl, right? I mean, we think of Bruce Springsteen with that one. That is a Tom Waits track originally. His take on this whole thing of his whole career arc. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I think in the 90s. And he came up to the microphone and his quote was pretty funny because he said something like, you know, people say I'm difficult to work with and I have no hits. And they say that like it's a bad thing. I love that attitude of like this, the flippant way where he's like, look, I am who I am. And clearly there's enough people out there who are very moved by that music. And so who cares? At least he can look at himself in the mirror and say, like, I've done everything that I ever wanted to do creatively without compromise. And so there's 2 guitar players. I'm going to focus more on the G. Smith side because I think he's the one that's doing those like lead parts. He was in the leader of the SNL orchestra for years and years, and he was the guy who was out there having the most fun on stage every night with the blonde hair, ponytail, Telecaster usually. Phenomenal player, and he is doing nothing to stand out in this song. He is absolutely just putting the perfect little embellishments and decorations on this one. So we begin it by playing this octave, and then moving into this relative minor pentatonic that's rooted here on the old 8th fret. So this shape, that's very important. Just to kind of like unpack the lyrics for a second, it reminds me almost of like a mini Moonstruck, if you're familiar with that movie. The character in this song is talking about, you know, walking down the street and past a gate and all these like touchstones, and these are things that you think about. And it's a New York song, and having that feeling of like the adrenaline of like walking up to a house and all those things, like thinking of the terrace, you know, and thinking about the stairway and the door and all those are things that like you encounter first. You know, if I was the one you chose to be your only one. Don't leave me lonely. A different kind of a love story where it's sort of that anticipation time. It's not a heartbreak. It's not unrequited love per se, but it's that moment where you're like flying, you know, 3 feet above the ground. You're just hoping that you don't get let down and, you know, drop. One other lyric that has been kind of like re-inked in my mind through time would be all the trains are full of all those Brooklyn girls, you know, and that's one too that recently we were waiting at late at night at Atlantic Terminal. So we walk in, and it's like a time capsule. Like it looks like they took this train out of the Transit Museum. Like it looks like it's worn in over 50 years. So, but it could have been a train that was rolling out, you know, in the time that Tom was writing this song back in the 80s. Literally 100% looked that way. The train's empty except for us. And as we're sitting there waiting for the train to start moving, people start filing in, and they're all, you know, all dressed up, and they have like posters in their hand, like they just came from like it's a favor from a party or a concert. And as they're coming in and filling all the seats, I'm getting this feeling in my head like, this train is full of all those Brooklyn girls. They try so hard to break out of their little world. And like that now is my visual every time I just think of that. Check it out and let me know what you think. I'd love to hear which tracks you like. And if you believe that there are ones maybe that I'm missing that I didn't, you know, complete the breadcrumbs through. Hope you had fun. See you on the next one. With your hands and they scatter like crows. They ain't got nothing that'll capture your heart. They're just thorns without the rose. Be careful of them in the dark. And if I was the one who chose to be your only one, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? When I see you tonight on a downtown train.